Overcoming myths and objections, we prefer to phase in upgrades over time. There are a lot of people out there that think that phasing the measures would be better than doing them all at once. But you know what? When you do the math, a fundamentally different picture emerges. So you could do things in steps. Say, yeah, we're going to gradually climb the stairs of efficiency until we finally get all the projects done. But you know what? We don't want to rush. We want to maintain. We don't have an infinite amount of bandwidth or human capital to manage these projects. We don't have an infinite amount of capital. Let's just do a couple projects a year for the next 5 years, and we'll get it done eventually. But how about the downsides of phased upgrades? Number one, you're delaying the start of savings from some of the work, which could result in significantly lower returns. And we have a chart to give you examples of that following. Okay? Delaying the start of potential non-utility cost and financial and non-financial benefits, which are often much larger than the utility cost financial savings, that could be even more serious. So for example, let's imagine you're in a shop doing metal work, and your people really can't see what they're doing. So as a result, you have an overly large, greater than industry expected average scrap rate. You could say, yeah, we're going to phase this in. Well, what if you wait to do that shop until 2-3 years from now? Now you're going to suffer the losses of all those, metal scraps, and which, by the way, are probably many, many times the amount of energy savings that you thought you were pushing to the side. Just because you delayed the start of a project, it really had some very powerful non-utility benefits. How about missing the opportunity to get greater economy of scale in materials and labor as well as project management? You do more projects at the same time, you get discounts on these things, and people are more focused. How about potentially losing the opportunity to collect rebates or incentives in future periods if the program qualifications change or available funding is exhausted? Big problems. Let's get back to that chart I promised you. Peter Drucker is an internationally famous author in management theory. He passed away, but before he did, he wrote over 40 books on management. One of my favorite quotes of his is this one: "Value is created by the compression of time." So take a look at this little example I threw together a couple of years ago, and I've been using it ever since. Imagine you have the opportunity to do 10 upgrade projects, 5 4-year simple payment period projects, and 5 2.5-year simple payment period projects. I don't want you to misunderstand my use of simple payment period here as somehow legitimizing the use of that metric. I just wanted to give you a yardstick that was familiar. So you're going to do some medium simple payment period projects, and you do some relatively short simple payment period projects. You have a choice of either doing all 10 this year or doing one long and one short each year for the next 5 years. In this particular example, which by the way used a discount rate of 10%, it turns out that if you did all projects this year, you would spend almost $1.7 million, and you'd wind up with an NPV of a little over $1 million. If you did the projects, 2 projects per year for the next 5 years, it would take you a long time to fully integrate all the savings. You'd wind up getting a net present value of only $578,000. Your lost net present value would be over $400,000. That $437,705 net present value loss is fully 75% of the net present value you'd get if you'd wait to do the projects over 5 years. So the deal is you'd get 75% higher net present value, which would help you build shareholder value faster if you simply did all the projects today. Now, interestingly enough, that 437 is fully 25% of the $1.68 million worth of first cost. So, if I told you today, if you did all the projects today, I'll give you 25% off all the parts and labor, I think you'd probably get all the projects done today, or this year, more precisely. One of the reasons people give for not doing all the projects today is they say, well, I don't have the money. I mean, even if I did realize that I could get 75% higher net present value, I simply wouldn't be able to get the nearly $1.7 million I need in that previous example to do all the projects today. Okay, let's look at that. If you need to borrow capital to accelerate the pace of the projects, doesn't it make sense to compare the interest you're going to pay to the higher net present value of doing all the projects now? Take a look at what that looks like, okay? So if you calculate the net present value for the following 3 scenarios and compare them, you're going to find that ABC, A is 100% funding at date 0 using cash, B is 100% funding at date 0 using 3-year financing, and C is 50% funded using cash at date 0 and 50% funded at date 1, which is a year from now, using cash. What you really find is that when you do the math, A's net present value is the highest, followed closely by B, and C's net present value is significantly lower, mainly because you're missing the year 1 savings on the second half of the installation. Okay? So this is one of those situations where you've got to replace myth with math, and that gives you the motivation to go forward with the project using borrowed money. Now, another reason that people give is that they don't have the management bandwidth to implement all the projects this year, even if they have the capital. But my answer to that is, well, first of all, think of how much outsourced project management talent you could fund with that same net present value premium. I mean, you're talking about $400,000+ worth of project management bandwidth, okay? And how soon would you like to begin enjoying the non-utility cost financial and non-financial benefits of the project? Because that may wind up giving you a tremendous amount of uplift in productivity among all the other employees that are now sitting underneath those brand new your upgraded systems. The lighting, the ventilation, the air conditioning, the heating, all those environmental systems, they have a direct impact on productivity. You'll see that revealed in lots of other lessons here within Selling in 6. But you're complaining about not having enough bandwidth because people are too busy, they're overtasked and understaffed. What if you made everybody more effective by just improving the environmental quality of their workspace? You'd pick up whatever you had to make people work a little harder on in spades, because you're going to pick up this productivity across the whole workforce that you employ.